Unknown planets, legendary battles and incredible stories await you here. But don't forget to be a part of this universe. Subscribe, like, comment, be a part of this great adventure. The year was 4287. Deep within the vast reaches of the Milky Way, beneath the cold, indifferent gaze of distant stars, the great civilizations of the galaxy had united under a single banner, the Galactic Council. It had been formed in an age of war, forged in blood and compromise, a beacon of fragile peace between species that had once known only conquest and conflict. For centuries, it had kept war at bay. But peace, as history had proven time and time again, was a delicate construct, built upon shifting foundations. And now, those foundations were beginning to crack. The greatest threat to this balance was the Zarthon Empire. A species bred for war, they held no interest in politics, treaties, or discussions. To them, diplomacy was the language of the weak. For decades, the Council had contained them, enforcing strict limitations on their expansion. But containment had only fueled their hunger. And now, that hunger had turned to action. The Council's intelligence networks had uncovered evidence. In the forbidden sectors of deep space, the Zarthon were constructing warships on an unprecedented scale. Their fleet was growing, and not in secrecy but with blatant defiance. It was a message. We are ready. The Council knew what this meant. If they did not act, war would be inevitable. If they confronted the Zarthon, war would be inevitable. The noose was tightening either way. Yet, before a decision could be reached, the unexpected happened. A signal. It arrived at the Council's Central Command, Aurora Station, as a series of strange, fragmented pulses. At first, the technicians dismissed it as an error, random interference, perhaps a cosmic echo bouncing from some forgotten relic of a past civilization. But when they ran the necessary analyses, the truth struck them with a chilling finality. The signal was coming from the eternal void. For centuries, the void had remained untouched, a region of space that swallowed all who dared venture into it. No ship had returned from its depths. No explorer had lived to tell of what lay beyond its blackened veil. Some called it cursed. Others believed it to be a place where the laws of physics unraveled. But no one, not in the long history of the galaxy, had ever heard something from within it. And now, the void was speaking. The Council convened an emergency summit. The great chamber of Aurora Station filled with the presence of representatives from every major faction. Holographic screens projected the faint, pulsing waveform of the signal at the room's center, flickering like a heartbeat from an unknown abyss. At the head of the table, High Counselor Adrian Vox sat in silence, fingers steepled beneath his chin. He had ruled the Council through wars and betrayals, through uneasy alliances and bitter conflicts. He had always managed to keep the galaxy from tipping over the edge. But now, he faced a crisis unlike any before. On his right, Ambassador Nyara Vex of the Solarian delegation narrowed her silver, luminescent eyes at the signal's repeating frequency. She was one of the Council's most skilled negotiators, renowned for brokering peace in conflicts thought unwinnable. But even she could sense that this was beyond diplomacy. "This could be a trap," she said at last, her voice measured. "We know nothing about what lies in the void, only that no one who enters ever returns. What if this is a warning? What if we're the ones being lured in?" Across the table, Commander Dane Rask remained silent. The elderly warrior stood rigid, arms folded behind his back, a cold intensity in his sharp gaze. He had led the Council's fleets in battle, had seen firsthand what war cost. But unlike Vox, he did not fear war. "If it is a trap," Rask said, "we should be the ones to spring it first." He stepped forward, voice firm. "The real question is, if this signal represents a threat, do we let the Zarthon discover it before we do?" A murmur spread through the chamber. That was the true danger. The Council spies confirmed that the Zarthon had received the signal too. If it was a weapon, a power, or an entity, and the Zarthon reached it first, then the war would not be fought on the Council's terms. Vox exhaled, decision solidifying. "We send an expedition," he declared. "A team of specialists, scientists, diplomats, military personnel. We find out what this is before the Zarthon do." Rask inclined his head slightly. "The fleet will be ready." At the far end of the chamber, Dr. Orlon Sale, head of the Council's scientific division, ran a hand through his graying hair. His gaze never left the signal's flickering pattern. "This isn't just a signal," he murmured. "It's thought." Eyes turned toward him. Vox frowned. "Explain." Sale's voice was barely above a whisper. "I ran deeper scans. This pattern, it's structured like a neural pulse." He hesitated. "This isn't a random transmission. This is a mind reaching out." The silence was absolute. The Zarthon were dangerous, yes. But this? If this was a mind, an intelligence, a being that existed beyond the known, then what did it want? And why now? There was only one way to find out. The Solstice, the Council's most advanced exploration vessel, was prepared for departure. The crew selected. The mission set. Somewhere in the black abyss of the eternal void, something was waiting. Yet, unknown to them all, danger was already among them. Commander Dane Rask, the very man sworn to protect the mission, had his own agenda. He had long since lost faith in the Council's ideals, seeing their pacifism as a slow death, a weakness that would eventually doom them all. He had already made his choice. Long before the meeting, long before the mission was planned, he had sent a message of his own. To the Zarthon. And when Solstice departed, it would not just be racing against time. It would be racing against betrayal. The Solstice loomed in the docking bay like a silent titan, its dark hull reflecting the cold glow of Aurora Station's artificial lights. The ship was the pinnacle of Council engineering. Sleek, heavily shielded, equipped with experimental jump drives designed for deep space exploration. It had seen battle before, yet this mission was unlike any other. This time, it wasn't war they were heading toward. It was the unknown. Inside, the crew prepared in hushed efficiency. Soldiers secured their weapons. Scientists calibrated instruments. Engineers checked the ship systems with meticulous precision. There was tension in the air, not of fear, but of something deeper, anticipation. Adrian Vox observed the final preparations from the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His reflection stared back at him in the reinforced viewport, lined features, silver-threaded hair, eyes that had seen too much. A presence at his side drew him from his thoughts. "We're ready," Nyara Vex said. She had changed from her diplomatic robes into the more practical attire of an off-world negotiator. Dark, form-fitting, built for movement. Even without the formal dress, there was an elegance to her. Solarian features were naturally striking, their iridescent skin and luminous eyes setting them apart from humans. But it was the sharpness in her gaze that made her presence commanding. "What do you think we'll find out there?" she asked. Vox exhaled slowly. "I don't know. That's what troubles me." Nyara studied him, as if weighing something unsaid. "You've led the Council through every crisis it has faced in the last decade. But I've never seen you hesitate before." He turned to her. "We are standing at the edge of something unprecedented. If the signal is what Dr. Sale believes, then this is first contact with a mind unlike any we've known. If it's something else, something hostile." He let the sentence hang. "Then we deal with it," Nyara said simply. Vox almost envied her certainty. The ship's AI intercom came to life with its neutral, androgynous voice. Final departure procedures initiated. Prepare for launch. The bridge came alive. Officers assumed their positions. Consoles flickered with updated telemetry. The hum of the ship's core deepened. Commander Dane Rask strode in, his expression unreadable as always. He moved with military precision, his uniform crisp, his demeanor calculated. "Fleet Command reports Zarthon vessels mobilizing near the border," he said, without preamble. Vox's jaw tightened. "Are they moving toward the void?" "Not yet. But they know we're leaving," Rask said. "If they wanted to stop us, they'd already be here. I'd say they're waiting to see what we find first." "Or they already know more than we do," Nyara murmured. No one had an answer for that. The Solstice disengaged from the docking clamps, thrusters firing in a controlled burn as it drifted free of Aurora Station's gravity well. The ship rotated smoothly, aligning its trajectory toward the distant coordinates of the eternal void. A pulse of energy surged through the hull as the ship's jump drive engaged. The view beyond the viewport twisted, space itself seeming to stretch and distort. Then, with a soundless implosion of light, the Solstice vanished into the abyss. The transition was jarring. No matter how advanced the technology, no species had yet mastered the art of making deep space travel comfortable. The human mind was not designed to process the sensation of existing in two places at once. Even seasoned travelers took a moment to reorient themselves. When the view stabilized, the bridge fell silent. Before them stretched the eternal void. It was not merely empty space. It was something deeper, something wrong. The very fabric of the cosmos seemed darker here, the stars dimmer, their light swallowed by an unseen force. It was as if the universe itself recoiled from this place. "We have arrived," the AI announced. Dr. Orlon Sale leaned over his console, eyes darting across the data feeds. "There's something here," he murmured. "I'm detecting residual energy patterns. But they're unstable. It's as if reality itself is fluctuating." Nyara frowned. "Fluctuating how?" Sale hesitated. "Like a memory being rewritten." The words unsettled everyone. Then, the signal pulsed again. Louder. Closer. Vox straightened. "Pinpoint its location." "Already working on it," Sale said, fingers flying across the interface. He stopped, eyes widening. "What?" Rask demanded. Sale swallowed. "It's coming from everywhere." The signal wasn't a beacon from a single point. It resonated from the entire region, as though the void itself was speaking. Then the lights flickered. The temperature on the bridge dropped. A whisper, barely audible, drifted through the comms. Not static. Not a distortion. A voice. Nyara stiffened. "Did anyone else hear that?" Vox nodded. "Enhance the signal." Sale's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the frequency. The whisper grew clearer, words forming from the static. "You are not ready." The voice was layered, as if spoken by 1,000 echoes. It was neither hostile nor welcoming. It simply was. Then the ship lurched. The gravity field flickered, alarms blaring. The void itself seemed to pull at them, as if unseen hands grasped the hull. "We're caught in a spatial distortion," an officer shouted. "Reverse thrusters." Rask barked. The ship trembled as it fought against the unseen force. The viewport showed nothing but darkness, yet the instrument screamed of movement, of something shifting in the abyss. Vox made a split-second decision. "Sale, shut the signal down." "No. I don't know if I can." Sale's voice was strained. "It's not something we're receiving. It's something that's being imprinted into our systems." Nyara stepped forward. "Then try communicating back." Sale hesitated. "With what?" She turned to Vox. "If this is a mind, it's testing us. We need to show that we are not a threat." There was no time for debate. Vox nodded. "Do it." Sale exhaled sharply, fingers moving in rapid succession, sending out a countersignal. A sequence designed to show intelligence, a recognition of language. For a long, breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, the pressure released. The ship systems stabilized. The tremors ceased. The whisper faded. On the screen, the signal changed. It was no longer a warning. It was an invitation. Vox looked around the bridge. "We move forward." No one argued. As the solstice drifted deeper into the eternal void, one truth became evident. They were no longer alone. The solstice drifted into the abyss, its hull humming softly beneath the weight of something unseen. The eternal void stretched before them, not merely darkness, but an absence of light so complete it defied perception. The ship's powerful sensors, designed to penetrate the depths of space, returned only confusion. Distorted readings, contradictory signals, fragments of data that refused to make sense. Adrian Vox stood rigid at the center of the bridge, staring into the nothingness. The silence was unnatural. Even in the most desolate corners of space, there was always something. The distant radiation of stars, the ghostly echoes of cosmic background noise. But here, there was nothing. The ship's instruments had registered a deafening absence, as though this place had been excised from the fabric of reality itself. Dr. Orlon Sale sat hunched over his console, his fingers moving with meticulous urgency. "I've never seen anything like this," he murmured, half to himself. "This isn't just empty space. It's an anomaly. Space-time itself is unstable." Commander Dane Rask stood with arms folded, watching the scientist with quiet scrutiny. "What does that mean for us?" His voice was calm, measured, but there was an undercurrent of tension in it. Sale hesitated before answering. It means we can't trust our sensors. They're trying to map something that refuses to be mapped. He exhaled sharply, adjusting the signal filters. It's as if the void itself is watching us back. The bridge fell into a weighted silence. Then a ripple passed through the ship, a shift so subtle it might have been imagined. The viewport darkened further, as though something vast had moved between them and the stars beyond. Nyara Vex stiffened beside Vox. The Solarian diplomat had been unnervingly quiet since they arrived. Her iridescent eyes narrowed in deep concentration. Her species possessed heightened cognitive abilities, a sensitivity to disturbances beyond normal perception. And now, every fiber of her being was screaming. "We're being observed," she said, her voice steady but taut. Vox glanced at her. "By what?" Nyara didn't answer right away. She tilted her head, listening to something no one else could hear. Then finally she spoke. "I don't know." Sale's console flickered, a rapid stream of incomprehensible symbols racing across the screen. He inhaled sharply. "The signal," he stopped, brow furrowing. Vox stepped forward. "What about it?" Sale's fingers hovered above the interface. "It's changing again. But this time." He hesitated. "It's responding to us." A cold weight settled in Vox's chest. "How?" Sale's throat worked as he swallowed. "It's not broadcasting like before. It's asking a question." The word sent a ripple of unease through the bridge. Nyara's gaze snapped to him. "A question?" Sale nodded, his voice quieter now. "Yes, but not in any structured language. It's an inquiry encoded into the transmission itself." His fingers traced a pattern across the display, highlighting the shifting sequences. "It's asking who we are, not what they were, not their species, their technology, their purpose." "Ooh." A stillness settled over the crew. Vox exchanged a glance with Nyara, who gave a slow nod of understanding. "Transmit a response," Vox said. "Let it know we come in peace." Sale's hands moved swiftly, composing a reply, a simple mathematical sequence designed to convey intelligence, awareness, intent. A universal acknowledgement. He pressed the command. For a long, excruciating moment, nothing happened. Then the ship lurched. The lights dimmed, the hull groaning as if under immense pressure. The viewport flickered, distorting as if space itself was twisting around them. The temperature on the bridge plummeted. And then, the whispers returned. Not sound, not speech. Something deeper. A presence curling at the edges of thought. Nyara staggered, her hands pressing against her temples. "It's trying to communicate," she gritted out. Her breath came in short gasps, as though an unseen force pressed down upon her. Vox turned to Sale. "Can we decipher it?" Sale's hands shook as he adjusted the signal filters. "It's not language. Not thought, not words. It's something else." His voice grew unsteady. "It's memory." A pulse rippled through the ship. The view outside fractured. They were no longer on the solstice. Vox staggered as his surroundings shifted violently. Gone was the bridge, the consoles, the artificial lights. In their place stretched a desolate expanse, a graveyard of worlds. Shattered monoliths, ruins of impossible scale, remnants of a civilization long dead. The air itself carried the weight of something ancient, something broken beyond repair. Shadows moved at the edges of sight, specters of a forgotten age. "This isn't real," Sale whispered, his voice trembling. "It's a projection. A record." A figure stood ahead of them. Not solid, not fully formed, an echo, flickering like the last ember of a dying fire. Vox took a step forward. "Who are you?" The figure did not answer, but emotion crashed through them. Grief, loss, desperation, warning. Images flashed through their minds. A war beyond imagining, a force that should never have been awakened, the collapse of something so vast it should have been eternal. Then, finally, a choice. The vision shattered. They were back on the solstice. The alarms blared, the ship system struggling to compensate for whatever had just happened. The whispers had ceased. The presence was gone. Sale wiped sweat from his brow. We weren't supposed to find this place. Vox steadied himself, exhaling. But now we have. Nyara turned to him. What did it show us? Rask, who had remained silent through the ordeal, finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but firm. A warning. Vox's gaze remained on the viewport, where the darkness stirred once more. Or a challenge. Then, before anyone could respond, the ship's engines cut out. The sudden stillness was suffocating. Sale frantically checked his console. We've lost propulsion. Vox's pulse quickened. Navigation. Sale shook his head. Not responding. Nyara's breath came shallow. We can't leave, can we? A heavy silence answered her. The solstice was trapped. And beyond the viewport, the void shifted again. They were no longer alone. The solstice floated, adrift in the abyss. No hum of propulsion, no flicker of thrusters. Only the deep, unbroken silence of a ship that had lost its tether to reality. The bridge was still. Even the air felt heavier, as though the weight of the void had seeped inside. Adrian Vox scanned the control panel before him, searching for something, anything, that indicated they still had control. He found nothing. The instruments remained functional, yet their readings made no sense. Time itself felt distorted, the seconds stretching unnaturally. Dr. Orlon Sale's fingers moved across his console with a kind of quiet urgency that suggested he, too, knew how precarious their situation had become. Whatever this place is, he muttered, it doesn't obey normal physics. We are caught in something. Something that doesn't want us to leave. Commander Dane Rask stood rigid at the viewport, watching the blackness outside as though it might lash out at any moment. His eyes flickered to Nyara Vex, who remained unsettlingly quiet, her expression unreadable. This isn't a malfunction, Rask said finally. We're being held here. Nyara turned her luminous gaze toward him. By what? The question lingered in the air, unanswered. Then the first sound came. A deep, resonant vibration. Not from outside the ship, but within. A tremor that wasn't mechanical, wasn't structural, it was organic. Vox's hands clenched into fists. Sale! The scientist's face was pale, his eyes locked onto the erratic pulse of their sensor readings. There's movement inside the ship. The bridge went silent. Then, as if in response, the lights flickered. A whispering distortion rippled through the air, curling at the edges of hearing but never forming words. The sensation of being watched intensified, like a presence slithering unseen through the corridors. Vox turned sharply to Rask. Security team. Now. Rask was already moving. He barked into his communicator, his voice crisp, efficient. Teams 1 and 2, sweep all decks. Report anything unusual. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The ship's artificial gravity trembled, not failing, but shifting. The sensation sent an uneasy wave through the crew, as if the solstice itself was subtly breathing. Sale exhaled shakily. I don't think we're alone anymore. The words had barely left his lips before the first distress call crackled over the comm. Security Deck 3. Something's moving in the vents. We can hear it, but... A burst of static. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Wait. I think it's... Silence. Then the lights died. Total, suffocating blackness. The emergency backup systems flickered to life an instant later, their dim, red glow casting eerie shadows against the walls. The comms returned, distorted, broken. A voice, frantic, barely contained. Something's in here with us. Vox wasted no time. Rask, go. Rask nodded once, then strode out of the bridge, his step swift, controlled. He had fought wars, had seen men break in the heat of battle. But this was different. This enemy was unseen, its intentions unknown. Nyara inhaled deeply, her head tilting slightly, as if listening. It's not just moving, she murmured. It's studying us. Sale's knuckles were white against the edge of his console. What if this isn't an attack? What if it's curiosity? Vox didn't relax. Curiosity can still kill. The ship shuddered again, this time deeper, more deliberate. Like something testing the boundaries of its new prize. The security feeds flickered to life. Deck 3. Grainy red lighting illuminating steel corridors. The security team moved in tight formation, weapons raised. Their breaths came sharp, quick, misting slightly in the unnatural chill. Then the shadows moved. Not an illusion. Not a trick of the failing lights. Something unfolded from the darkness. It was neither solid nor incorporeal. Something in between. A shifting mass of silken tendrils, coiling and unraveling as it emerged from the vents. It did not attack. It did not rush forward. It simply observed. And then it spoke. Not in sound. Not in words. In thought. A single, foreign voice curled into their consciousness, layered with age, hunger, patience. You should not be here. The team faltered, their weapons shaking. One man gasped, pressing his hands to his head as if the words had physically pierced him. Then the creature moved. Faster than sight. Faster than reflex. The feed cut out. The bridge stood frozen, watching the empty screen. Then, the comms crackled again. A whisper. Shallow, ragged breathing. A single word. Trembling. Run. Silence. Then the ship roared to life. The lights surged, the hull groaning as the unseen force holding them in place relented. The Solstice shuddered, its propulsion systems reigniting, the navigation controls blinking back online. They were being released, but not untouched. Nyara exhaled, slow, controlled, though tension lined her features. It let us go. Vox's jaw tightened. Not out of mercy. Sale's voice was quiet, distant. Then why? A pause. Then Rask's voice came through the comms, steady despite the weight in it. Because it wanted us to leave with a message. Vox turned toward the viewport. Outside, the eternal void loomed, unchanged, indifferent. But deep within its depths, something had seen them. And it had whispered its warning. Not to threaten them. To prepare them. Something was coming. The Solstice hung in the abyss, no longer moving forward, no longer retreating. The hum of the ship systems had returned, but it was different now. Subdued, almost hesitant, as if the vessel itself sensed that whatever had released them from the void had done so on its own terms. Adrian Vox stood at the command deck, arms folded, eyes locked on the darkness that no longer felt empty. The bridge had quieted, the usual buzz of control panels and officers' reports replaced by a silence that carried the weight of something unspoken. Even though they had escaped the depths of the void, something had come with them. Behind him, Nyara Vex moved in measured steps, arms crossed, fingers tapping absently against her sleeve. It was a rare tell, one that only surfaced when she was unsettled. That thing inside the ship, she said finally, her voice quiet but sharp. It wasn't just observing us. It was marking us. Vox turned slightly, studying her. Marking us for what? Nyara's luminous silver eyes flickered as she exhaled. For something else. At the console, Dr. Orlon Sale barely heard them. His hands moved across his controls, replaying the same corrupted security footage for the fourth time. Deck 3. The last known transmission from the security team before the entity, whatever it was, made its presence known. The red emergency lights flickered over steel walls, distorted by static. The team's breathing was sharp over the comm, each step deliberate. Then, movement. A shifting in the vents. A whisper, not spoken but felt. Then the screen fractured, as if reality itself had shattered for a single frame. When the image returned, the corridor was empty. Sale clenched his jaw. We lost good people back there, he muttered. His voice was steady, but the grief sat just beneath the surface. Across the bridge, Commander Dane Rask leaned against the weapons console, arms crossed over his broad frame. We could have lost the whole damn ship, he said, his voice low. But there was something else there, doubt. As if for the first time, he wasn't sure if his weapons could have done anything at all. Sale didn't look up from his screen. Maybe we did. Vox frowned. Explain. Sale leaned back, rubbing his temples. His hands were trembling. This intelligence, it didn't just interact with us. It touched us. Changed us. I ran a full diagnostic. The ship's logs, sensor data, system functions, they're all intact, but... His voice dropped. There's something in the data that wasn't there before. Nyara stopped pacing. You think it left something behind? Sail met her gaze. Not just in the ship. In us. The bridge went still. Vox exhaled, slow and controlled. You mean? In our minds, Sail confirmed. I ran a neural scan on myself after we left the void. There are residual patterns. Something foreign. It's not damage. Not interference. It's something else. Rask straightened, his muscles tensing. Are you saying we're compromised? Sail hesitated. I don't know. Not in the way you're thinking. It's not controlling us. But something changed when we made contact. Vox shifted his weight. Do you feel anything different? Sail flexed his fingers, looking down at them as if they were unfamiliar. No. Not yet. Nyara inhaled sharply. That's what worries me. A sudden chime broke the tension. Incoming transmission, the AI announced. Vox turned. Source. Unknown. It is not being received through standard communication channels. Sail's fingers flew across the interface, scanning the data stream. His throat tightened as he read the encryption pattern. It's the same as before. The entity that spoke to us. Vox's expression hardened. Put it through. The speakers came alive. The voice was not human. It was layered, shifting in tone, ancient and patient and unavoidable. Pressed into the space between thoughts. You were warned. Nyara's shoulders tensed. Sail's fingers twitched. Rask's grip on the console tightened. But you did not listen. The lights flickered. A pulse rippled through the solstice, not physical, but felt, brushing against something deep in their consciousness. You are being followed. Vox straightened. By what? Silence. Then, finally, what came for us will come for you. The transmission cut off. No one spoke. Then the proximity alarms wailed. Contact! An officer barked. Approaching fast. Vox turned toward the viewport, just as the warships emerged from the black. Zarthun. The fleet had been waiting for them. Watching. Rask was the first to move. Raising shields. Too late, Nyara cut in. They've already locked onto us. A sharp click filled the air as the external comms engaged. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the bridge. Commanding, cold, familiar. Solstice. You will surrender. Sitting at the helm of the Zarthun flagship was Sovereign Krelthar, his scarred features cast in the cold glow of his warship's interior. A predator, perfectly still, waiting for the first sign of weakness. Vox met his gaze through the display. What do you want? Krelthar's laughter was slow, deliberate. Do not insult me, counselor. You entered the void. Now you will tell me what you brought back. Nyara flicked her gaze toward Vox, barely perceptible, but the message was clear. He doesn't know everything. Vox didn't blink. We found nothing. Krelthar's expression darkened. A lie. You carry something back with you. Something worth dying for. The solstice trembled as the Zarthun fleet locked weapons onto them. You will comply, or you will be erased. The bridge crew braced. Hands hovered over controls. Every breath felt like a countdown. Then, a second alarm blared. New contact, an officer shouted. But, it's not Zarthun. The display flared to life, revealing something emerging from the void behind them. Something immense. Something that should not exist. On screen, the Zarthun fleet hesitated. Their warships, so confident moments ago, shifted, as if instinctively retreating from something greater than themselves. Even Krelthar, unshaken by war, went silent. Vox gripped the edge of the console, his pulse hammering. They had left the void, but the void had followed them. The solstice was caught between two impossibilities. Ahead, the Zarthun fleet, powerful, unyielding, weapons primed. Behind, the thing from the void, its vastness too alien to comprehend. It had no form, yet it cast a presence so immense that even space itself seemed to bend around it. A darkness deeper than any abyss, a weight that pressed against the mind like an ancient whisper. On the bridge, the crew was frozen in place, every breath measured, every muscle coiled. Even the Zarthun ships had stopped their advance. These were warriors who feared nothing, who had built their empire through conquest and blood. Yet here they were, hesitating. Adrian Vox's gaze remained locked on the viewport, his thoughts racing. What came for us will come for you. The warning still echoed in his mind. He had assumed it meant the Zarthun were a threat, that they had unknowingly unleashed something upon the galaxy. But now he wasn't sure who the warning had been for. Kreldhar's voice crackled through the comms, his usual arrogance laced with something new, uncertainty. What is that? No one answered. Dr. Orlon Sale, face pale but hand steady, scanned the readings flooding his console. His voice, when he finally spoke, was almost reverent. It's not just a presence. It's a force. Space-time around it is unraveling. He swallowed. It's rewriting reality as it moves. Nyara Vex exhaled sharply. Her silver eyes narrowed. It followed us, she murmured. But why? Sale's fingers danced across the controls, decoding patterns that shouldn't exist. I don't think it's following us, he said. I think it's hunting something. The void entity shifted, its formless mass pulsating like an ancient wound reopening. A Zarthun warship moved first. Perhaps it was instinct, perhaps fear, but the vessel's thrusters ignited in a sudden, desperate retreat. The moment it veered off course, the thing reacted. The bridge lights dimmed. The ship trembled. Then, in an instant, the Zarthun warship was gone. Not destroyed. Not obliterated. Gone. No explosion. No debris. Just an empty void where it had been. As if it had never existed. The bridge crew recoiled. Even Kreldhar's voice, when it returned, held a rare edge of fear. What did you bring back? Sale's breath was shallow. It's not something we brought back. It was already here. The realization settled over them like a death shroud. Vox forced himself to think past the terror clawing at his chest. The entity hadn't attacked the solstice. It had let them go. If it had wanted them erased, they would already be gone. But the Zarthun, it had turned on them instantly. It was choosing. Nyara turned sharply to Vox, her voice low but urgent. We have to leave. Vox's mind worked through the implications. The void entity wasn't concerned with them. It had a purpose, a focus. And it wasn't finished. Kreldhar, Vox said, his voice steady. Your ships are in danger. Stand down. Kreldhar snarled. You think I will run? Another Zarthun warship twitched on the sensors, engines heating, preparing to move. Tell them not to run, Sale whispered. His voice was strained, filled with something almost like understanding. Tell them to stay still. Vox hesitated, then hit the comm. Krell, order your fleet to hold position. If they move, they're dead. Dead. Kreldhar snapped. You just watched my ship vanish into nothingness. Because it ran. Sale cut in, his voice sharp. It's reacting to movement, to retreat. It's a predator, and we are prey. But if we don't run, we might not be worth chasing. Silence. Kreldhar's face was unreadable, his reptilian eyes locked onto Vox. He was not a man accustomed to submission. But even the mightiest of predators knew when they were outmatched. Hold your positions, Kreldhar ordered through gritted teeth. The Zarthun fleet stopped. The entity pulsed, waiting, watching. Then, like a tide receding, it folded into itself. The darkness collapsed inward, shrinking, dissipating, pulling into a single impossible point in space. And then it was gone. The bridge remained silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the Zarthun held their breath. Then, after what felt like an eternity, Kreldhar's voice came through the comms, low and cold. This is not over, Counselor. Vox exhaled slowly. No, he agreed. It's not. A long pause. Then the Zarthun fleet broke formation, their warships turning away, slipping into the dark void of space. One by one, they vanished into the stars. Only when the last ship was gone did Vox allow himself to breathe. He turned to his crew. Nyara's shoulders had relaxed, but her expression remained troubled. Sale was already pulling data, his mind still racing through what they had just witnessed. Rask stood motionless, arms folded, unreadable. We survived, Rask said finally.
Sale glanced at him.
For now. Vox sat heavily in his chair, running a hand over his face. The solstice was intact. The Zarthun were retreating. And yet, we're taking something back with us, he murmured.
Nyara nodded. Something the council will fear more than the Zarthun.
Vox leaned forward. Then we control the story. We decide what they hear, what they don't. The galaxy isn't ready for the truth.
Sale's eyes darkened.
And if it comes back? Vox looked at the empty space where the entity had disappeared, where reality itself had seemed to tremble. It never left, he said. The solstice turned toward home.